Thank you. Okay, is Richard here yet? No. Do we have Nigel? So, are you here to submit?
Yes. Philip Wescombe.
I think she's a spectator. That's
I'm
Robbie Dobby. Would you like to come forward? Sorry, I didn't catch your name.
Philip Wescombe.
Philip. Oh, yep. Here we go.
Very good.
So welcome, Philip. Philip's on page 38 of the agenda. So you have 5 minutes and you can start now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity to present today. I wanted to use a specific line from the Gladiator movie, which is, "I'm sorely vexed by this proposal." So I would like to oppose it today. And I guess one of the reasons for that is I'm not quite sure what we're trying to achieve with this proposal. I think the pedestrian safety seems to be the key. From what I can see, and hopefully I've understood that well. But when I look at the annual numbers of pedestrian deaths in Canterbury, each year we get between 1 or 2 as a general rule. So we're not going to make a huge amount of difference with any sort of changes that we put forward. I think you can see on the graph here, which is taken from the Ministry of Transport website, that the average over the last 7 years is 2.14 each year. I think Wellington and Canterbury, if you spend that out to hospitalisations and pedestrian associated crashes, again, we're only 7% of hospitalisations across the country, so very, very small. So it's the first point. I think we really don't have a problem. Sorry, regress this. Oh, there, cool. So I do agree. I think I'm happy enough for specific speed restrictions around school entrances in a very limited way, perhaps 30 to 60 minutes either side of school starting and finishing. I think that would be fine as long as it's restricted to sort of a 500 metre zone or something like that, or even less around those schools. But the reasons against expanding that any further is that I think it increases emergency response times. You will have seen that in the submissions from the emergency services themselves. We're already more than 100% slower since the earthquakes, and I wonder, if we start to slow things down further, how many deaths will result from that? If we consider we've only got 1 or 2 deaths a year as it is, any more from that will mean we're losing ground rather than gaining. The balance of costs and benefits to us as ratepayers doesn't seem to have been done. I couldn't see anything of that in the consultation documents that came out to us anyway. So is there evidence to support the claim that slower speeds will actually, in areas where we're not full of pedestrians, going to make any difference? Has there been a cost to implement study done? What are the opportunity cost losses? I've done a small calculation for you on the next slide. And frustration for drivers like me as we head down the roads at 30 kilometres an hour, blood pressure will be rising. Why are we going so slow? It just doesn't seem right in many places, especially when it's on the road, right, in many of these locations. I think many of the issues we have are around speeders zooming down roads, which is causing frustration and annoyance. And this doesn't relate to a 50 kilometre hour speed zone. This is a lack of policing, really. So I think if we police vigorously in areas where people are complaining that there's loud noise, people coming by at 100 kilometres an hour, whatever, well then that might make a difference. I think we need to be considerate that if we do slow down areas, traffic will move to different locations. That could increase the risk of accidents occurring in those areas, and we may end up with more accidents than we're saving. That should be considered. And I think we don't want Christchurch to be like Auckland. I don't want to see you guys hated as much as Auckland Transport is. So please make the right decision. Yeah. Finally, the business case example is a very simple one, but just assuming that if we drive around Christchurch and we lose 1 minute per week due to speed changes or less than 10 seconds a day, what does that equate to in lost working time? 166 40-hour working weeks, if we assume there's 400,000 residents in Christchurch. Obviously, that can add up to $7.9 million per year in lost potential. And I think also we need to consider, other economic losses which can result in other health impacts and life years lost. We know as an economy declines, health is decreased. So if we add all these things together, I personally think the business case won't stack up if we look back at those original figures of 1 to 2 people per year is what the margin we're working on. You're not going to see that statistically. Thank you.
Right, so thank you. 40 seconds. Aaron?
Yeah, just because I've asked this question many times, can't get the answer. Of your 2.4 deaths per year, how many of those are caused by people doing the actual speed limit and concentrating on driving versus excessive speeding, drugs, drink?
Exactly. I haven't seen any data like that, and I would have thought that would have been a key piece of information you should have been presented.
Expect so. Asked 4 times. Doesn't exist yet, but hoping to see it.
So Andre, just quickly.
Thank you. I've never been a huge fan of lowering speed limits. However, I had a conversation last week with a father, and his daughter was hit by a car going to school last year. And it's a road where the average speed is 66 k's. If there was a variable 30 k's speed limit around school times, that probably likely would have been the difference in this case. Yeah. What do you say to a father like that? Because that's these are the things we have to weigh up.
I think what I'm saying is, outside of school, I'm fine with 30 k's an hour.
Well, it's not outside of school though.
Where was it, sorry?
But it's on the journey to school. They can't get to school without going past this busy road, you know what I mean?
Well, I think what ought to be done is a study to say, where are these events happening? Is that a hotspot for that sort of thing happening? I think you can, if you do the work, you can find, okay, where are the hotspots? Where have we got it wrong in Christchurch?
Yeah.
And it's obviously not very many because we don't have very many of these incidents each year. So if you can do that, target what you're doing more accurately. Don't just have a blanket.
Yes, you'd be comfortable with those speed limits in those more targeted areas.
If they're targeted and there's a good reason to say, look, we have 10 accidents a year right here, well then sure, I've got no problem. Obviously there's an issue there.
Yes.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry, our time